even though we are an optimistic movement, sometimes we have to experience setbacks. So I'm saddened to tell you that because due to a very hectic travel schedule, Senator Rand Paul cannot be with us tonight. I feel with you, and I mean, please direct your complaints to the Senate. Just send them a message. However, he has also recorded a video message, and after that, we also have a little surprise for you. So stay tuned. Thank you.
Hey guys, I'd like to thank Students for Liberty for allowing me to speak to you via video tonight. Our voting schedule has been chaotic lately, and I apologize for not being able to be there in person. You're all gathered here for the same reason I fight for every day, to defend and protect liberty, and it has never needed more protecting. Both parties have infringed on it, sometimes in domestic affairs, sometimes in foreign interventions. I fight them both when they're wrong, and I try to work with either side when they want to fight to reclaim freedom. I'm proud to say that I've co-sponsored bills often with Democrats on issues like drug policy, criminal justice reform, indefinite detention, and repealing war authorizations. With Cory Booker, I've co-sponsored legislation to end solitary confinement for juveniles. With Ron Wyden, I've co-sponsored legislation to end mass, indiscriminate surveillance of Americans. With Chris Murphy, I've co-sponsored legislation to quit sending arms into the war in Yemen. While we lost the vote on the Senate floor, our agitation did prompt President Obama to withdraw the sale of smart bombs to Saudi Arabia. I've fought for the entire Bill of Rights, including the ones that often get ignored or trampled, like the Fourth Amendment. As you gather this weekend for speeches, discussions, music, and fun with friends, old and new, it's important to decide how we fight for liberty. Being active on your campus, helping keep the flame of liberty burning around the world, all of that's important. But what will you fight for, and how will you do it? Will it be what you do for a living? Will it be something you do on the side? Or will it be something that fades away as you get older? I'll just say this. Liberty needs all the defenders it can get. It has never been more important. One of the most important fights I've waged in Congress is to try to stop the indefinite detention of American citizens. The 2011 NDAA, the Defense Authorization Bill, gave the President power, but this power really has been around even longer than that. This power is to indefinitely detain an American citizen without a trial. Now, we lost this debate, the main debate on indefinite detention, in 2011. But I was able to defeat an amendment that, this is hard to believe, but is an amendment that would have allowed the indefinite detention of Americans actually found innocent in a court of law. Without my opposition, this amendment would have passed by voice vote. So we are winning some victories for liberty. I'm proud to say that I have a bill now that would repeal all of indefinite detention, every law, every word. My bill says that no branch of government can detain any person in our country without a trial. As you've seen in the past, when something comes along that is truly extraordinary, I won't hesitate to do whatever is needed. A few years ago, I took to the Senate floor for 13 hours, filibustering the nomination of CIA Director John Brennan and our policy of allowing the use of drones on American citizens. And it worked. The enormous public support I received that day forced the hand of the administration, and they had to announce that they had no such power or authority. I also filibustered the renewal of the Patriot Act, causing it to temporarily expire and be replaced with reforms that, while I didn't think were sufficient, were still better than what we actually had in the past. And were also aimed at fixing the problem of the government gathering the information of every American without warrant. We also fought together to stop a war in Syria. Well, not the current war, but the war that President Obama had set up with his red line and that hawks in Congress on both sides of the aisle were begging for as they sought for regime change in Syria. We actually got President Obama at the time to come to Congress and at least privately ask for permission, the way the Constitution intended. When he sensed that he might lose the vote, he backed down, and the large-scale bombing of Syria never occurred. I have fought the neocons in their relentless quest to have unlimited war and unlimited military expenditures. Most recently, the Trump administration floated the names of two neocon war hawks, John Bolton and Elliott Abrams, for top State Department posts. One of the things I actually liked about Donald Trump was that he seemed to want a more restrained foreign policy, and he thought the Iraq War and regime change were mistakes. Both Bolton and Abrams are unrepentant architects of the Iraq War and are proponents of perpetual intervention. So I stood up publicly and opposed their nominations. I was the only Republican to stand up publicly against these nominations. And you know what? I think my opposition may have made the difference. The president announced that neither candidate is being considered any longer. So often, those of us who believe in liberty are on the losing end of elections. I can't tell you how great it is to occasionally win a victory. This is real stuff. It is entirely possible lives will be saved and wars avoided because of our political action this year. Not all of us will agree on every issue. One thing I want to leave you with is this. With the passion of youth also often comes sort of a surety of one's views or of the purity of one's philosophy. I'd argue that that isn't libertarian, and it doesn't help us to grow our movement or work towards the society we want. There are a lot of ways to advance liberty. There can be multiple views on some issues, and certainly on tactics to achieve long-term goals. That's okay. In fact, as those devoted to freedom, we should encourage that, not admonish it. We should welcome, not seek to purge. We should allow for differences of opinion within the liberty movement, with the goal of convincing more people of the merits and virtues of a free society. Thank you. Thanks a lot for having me. We'll see you in the future. Thanks.
Very good. And we are very grateful that he still sent us a video even though his schedule changed last minute. So I understand that there is only a certain limit of the German accent that you can all bear. So that's the reason why I'm very excited to now give over the microphone to the comedian and master of ceremonies for tonight, Jeremy McLellan. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much for being here and for having me. I also did not want to perform tonight, but Gary Johnson told me I didn't have the right to refuse a contract. So we got to bake that cake. And in his defense, I think he just heard the word baked and was like, I'm on board. I'm on board. I can totally do that. Very disappointed that Rand Paul could not fully be here with us tonight, both physically and ideologically. Instead, doing what he has been doing and like literally phoning it in for the libertarian movement. It's okay. I've made no secret. I've made no secret of my disappointment in Rand Paul's support of banning refugees from coming to the United States, and mostly because I don't understand it. Like, based on like every Muslim immigrant guy that I know, like they would get along. Like they would like Rand because like they know exactly what it's like to constantly be told you'll never be as successful as your father. Why aren't you a doctor? I am a doctor. I'm literally also a doctor, Dad. Jesus. What more do you want? In that vein, I'm very excited for our surprise guest tonight. Very thrilled. Amir Nasr is the Sudanese-born author of the book My Islam, How Fundamentalism Stole My Mind and Doubt Freed My Soul. The book was banned in Malaysia, which forced Amir to seek political asylum in Canada. He was supposed to be present with us here today, but as a result of President Trump's executive order, he was unable to acquire a visa. A petition started. I don't know if you're clapping in support of him or like, yeah, ban. I don't know. We'll find out later. Find out later. A petition started by Students for Liberty highlighting his case drew over 51,000 signatures. Yeah, thank you all for signing that. Amir will give a longer talk tomorrow, but please help me welcome Amir, who is joining us here via Skype.
What's up, everyone? You can all hear me now? You can all hear me? Big shout. Okay, wonderful. See, because you get to see me, but I don't see anything. I'm being treated very unfairly. I'm being treated very poorly. Bigly poorly. So greetings, live from Vancouver, Canada, your friendly neighbor to the north. Why am I here? So one of the things that I love about Students for Liberty is, as a libertarian organization, we tend to be in the middle. We tend to be open to both liberal views and conservative views. And I find that very refreshing, because that's exactly what's needed in this time of polarization and rigidity. Now, here's the problem with binaries. I personally believe that binaries distract us from the root causes to all of our problems right now. And that brings me to my second point. If we are not careful, presidency by executive order will soon turn into tyranny by executive order. Now, some people who are right-leaning might think that that's unfair and hypocritical. They might say, Amir, where were you when President Obama was using executive orders like crazy, when he was just doing everything he wanted to do, wherever it was possible? And you know what? That will be a fair critique. When President Obama was ruling by executive order in many instances, many liberals were quiet. It was people who are like us, who are civil libertarians, who are outspoken, and then, of course, the Republicans were outraged. Now, we have that happening in reverse. The way I see it, President Trump is not really the problem. And if you're right-leaning, President Obama wasn't really the problem. The problem is executive orders. The fact that the presidency today has so much more power than it's supposed to have. So I believe that that needs to change. Why? Because liberty is not an item on a menu on the table. Liberty is the very table upon which everything else rests. Regardless of whether you're a conservative person or a liberal person, liberty is what allows us to discuss things, well, nowadays, shout at each other, right? Boisterous rhetoric masquerading as free speech, which I still have no problem with. But we have to change that. Because without liberty, without that foundational concern, regardless of who you are, where you come from, where you stand politically, things like disease, lack of education, poverty, all of those problems that affect us all are not going to go away. And that finally leaves me with my third point, and it's a very brief story. I have numerous friends who are North African, Arab, Middle Eastern, Muslim, all of them, in this case, who made it across to the United States of America because of the symbol of the Statue of Liberty. And eventually, years later, here's what they found themselves reciting, and it's called the Oath of Allegiance. Any of you now in the audience who are naturalized American citizens will know this. And I'm going to read it out now. I hereby declare on oath that I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty, of whom or which I have heretofore been a subject or citizen, that I will support and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. We need to reduce the power of the presidency and pass it back to Congress. We need to give the power back to the people, and we need to maintain America's promise in the world and continue improving it, because without it, the world is a much worse place. I'm not an American citizen. I'm not a citizen by law, but I have family in America. I have friends in America, and I have dreams that were made in America, and that is why I love America, despite the worst of America. Government of the people, by the people, for the people. With all that said, peace and much love.